Welcome to Leaving Six Figure Stories, where we interview people that have amazing stories just like mine. For some of you thought mine was amazing. I think we have much better stories out there in this world, and I just want to be able to share them with you. And, the one thing that I could tell you about these stories is that these people work so hard to achieve what they did in their other careers, and then they just 10x'd it, 20x'd it, 30x'd it in their new lives and their new journeys. And I'm glad that I'm able to actually talk about it because it's fun talking about your story. But when you hear other story, it just motivates you even more. So I'm privileged today to actually have a guest that happens to be really close to me, so close that I call him a neighbor. And I just want to share a little bit about my neighbor. In a recent article, a 5,000 Inc. article, Revel Pro received a ranking of 175 among America's fastest growing private companies and number 22 in the state of Florida, which state of Florida is actually really, really long, right? A lot of great businesses in Florida. They were awarded a nationwide ranking of number 12 for business services. So, I mean, that's really, really impressive. And more than all that, he's a great human being, a father, a husband, and just a good dude. I just like to welcome my neighbor and friend, Tim Frailly. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you? Thanks for that kind introduction, John. How are you today?
Not bad, man. Not bad. So I always talk about me leaving six figures, but you actually left six figures. I mean, there's so many people who've left it, and there's so many cool stories. And I don't know if we were in the driveway, but you were sharing yours. I was like, this dude's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, definitely. We have a very, very similar story. You know, rewind about a decade ago, I worked for a very large bank, started my career in the Midwest in Columbus, Ohio. And then during the housing crisis of '07, '08, '09, as the banks were all consolidating, I had the opportunity to move to the West Coast to Los Angeles to expand my career with this bank. And, I was a business banker and then a commercial banker. And I worked with a lot of small business owners and, sitting down at the table, counseling them and would say, hey, I can do this. Let's just figure out how to get from the suit and tie to running our own show. So that's what we did.
You know, I remember kind of my journey, and a lot of people thought it was really a great career, right? They told me it was great, but then I lived this other life where I wasn't feeling the same way. So, on your journey when you were there, I mean, I'm assuming you made good money. It was a good job, career. Um, were you hearing similar things from people like, you had a good life, good job? Like, were you hearing that? And did it did you kind of start having confliction in your mind, like about kind of how you felt and like where you wanted to be and where you were?
Absolutely. It was a great job. Great salary, the incredible benefits, the retirement. I was there for almost 10 years, so 6 weeks of vacation a year. And as I jokingly say now, it was a great part-time 40-hour-a-week job because, as you know, as a business owner, it's a lifestyle and it's much more than 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. So yeah, I heard a lot about that. People thought, and then Revel Pro, our e-commerce business, it's something my wife and I started and worked together from day one. So we heard a lot, whether it was friends or family or even former colleagues, like, you guys are crazy. What are you doing this for? You live in the big city of Los Angeles. You just bought a house. You just got married. You want to have children. What on earth are you doing? And it's about believing in yourself. And the e-commerce job, it wasn't a resign one day and start at the next. It was something I had as what some people call a side hustle or a hobby for years, selling things on eBay, etc. And then it was a perfect storm of my wife's talents from her former career, and then mine as well in sales and marketing. And it took off like a rocket ship.
Why e-commerce? Like what? Because I know for me, like real estate kind of stumbled on me because of I think I didn't like the way my real estate transaction went back in like '97. I bought a house. I felt like I didn't understand, real estate. So I said, I'm going to get my license. And before you know it, a couple of years later, I'm like one of the top agents in my brokerage at the time. So for you, what was that? Like what got you to e-commerce?
So if you look at the corner stores or the bodegas or the mom and pop shops, if they have great foot traffic, they have a lot of good business, pretty much no matter what they're selling. Whereas the internet and Amazon and Walmart.com and eBay.com, it's a digital Turkish bazaar, if you will, where it's a little statistic on Amazon, you have 200 million unique logins in North America every month. And think about that. We have about 335 million people in the US. Canada is about 10% of that. Um, but 200 million unique logins on Amazon.com. So, as you shared with the audience, we're neighbors. And every day, several times a day, there's a dang Amazon truck driving up and down the street, bringing things to people's front porches. Um,
More so now than ever.
More so now than ever because it is the holiday
It
season.
is holiday.
So every day we see the Amazon truck drive down our street and other people's streets. So, Amazon has become a powerful tool. And that was even before the pandemic. And then with the pandemic, we really saw an explosion with our e-commerce business where, folks couldn't go out to stores because they were closed. So they turned to platforms like Amazon, Walmart.com, businesses own Shopify accounts, eBay.com, to get the goods that they needed.
When you talk about that, you talk about the good parts of like, what happened, how your business took off, what all the things happened. Was there a defining moment prior to actually saying, I'm going to leave, that happened at your career that you were, or whatever you call it, your part-time 40-hour job? Was there a defining moment where you're like, you know what, it's time. I gotta go.
So we all know in the corporate world that you've got to play by their rules. And it's interesting, John, you on Thanksgiving Day, I was out walking my daughter around the neighborhood and you guys were playing pickleball and you had a t-shirt on that stuck with me and it said, loyalty is rare. And I thought about that. And, that's a two-way street, both with people and with corporations who employ their folks. And I look back to, 10 to 12 years ago when I was very successful at my banking career. And I had to train a lot of new people. And these folks would come in and, I was a top performer. So they wanted the top performers to do the sales training, et cetera. And they're hiring people off the street who have less experience and they're making more money than I am. And because I worked my way and navigated through the company, I was unfortunately capped at, here's your annual review. You did a great job. You're a top performer and a national achiever, but here's your 4% merit raise. And, I had some heart to hearts with my boss about that, like, hey, I'm being loyal to you. Where's your loyalty to a top performer? And, I can walk across the street and interview with another bank and show my portfolio, and they'll tell me to name my price. And those people have never met me. I've been here for a decade. And so that was one of the moments when I knew that, and I don't fault the people that I worked for, but corporations, they make it so you have to zigzag through other companies and et cetera, rather than developing and promoting from within. So that was the biggest moment where I knew, okay, I've got to move on. I've got to take my talents elsewhere, but I might as well take them to the Frailly residence and start our own business and make as much money as possible doing that.
You sound like LeBron James. He's like, I'm gonna take my talents to my
being a Midwesterner.
Oh, I can't talk about that, right? From your Cleveland area, like, or whatever, right? Like
that still stings.
It's when you talk about that, I remember my wife was sharing that her dad was working at a company for, let's say, 25 years. And, he was the most experienced guy there. But he didn't have college. So they were bringing in these, 25-year-old college graduates, and he's, in his 40s, whatever, and they're making 2 times more, but he's the one telling them how to do the job. He's their mentor. And, he had to go home with that. She said she remembers days and nights of him, being so feeling so horrible, how's this happen?
It's the exact same story. It's pretty demoralizing, I guess you could say, when you give so much to companies you work for, and they cannot reciprocate that loyalty.
I think that that's what I love about this journey of the stories, because someone will be listening and they'll have the same experience that you or I had, sitting in there where, I was badge number, 1 1, whatever it was. And I thought in my heart, I'm like, you know what? I mean something, right? I matter. And then, you do something on the job that you didn't mean to do, right? It happened because of the moment. And you might be, who knows, you could be, in jail, or you could lose your job, or you can lose money or whatever, and you didn't do anything wrong. You did your job, but the circumstances just didn't protect, didn't happen the way you would like. And at that point it's this culture, and then all of a sudden becomes a business where they're like, we want to help you but we can't, or whatever. And I've seen it so many times, and I think I started to see that too, where I'm thinking I'm in this wonderful whatever, and then I'm like realizing it's a job, right? It's a business,
Mhm.
and they have to make business decisions, and sometimes you might not be part of it.
Exactly.
Right? And if you think about this whole leaving six figure stories, it is the journey. And so you mentioned your wife earlier. So did she leave six figures too?
You could say she did. She was senior management at a consumer distribution company, and then when she moved to Los Angeles, she couldn't find the right career. I guess that's the way we could say it, where for her experience and education and work experience. Um, and my wife, and as you know, my wife, she grew up in Eastern Europe, so she's got a beautiful and cute Eastern European accent. That held her back in the job
Wow.
market, even though she had a impressive resume and went to some prestigious universities over there. She just couldn't find anything that she wanted to settle for. So it was definitely a perfect storm. I was tired of my career. She couldn't score anything that she felt that she wanted. And we said, hey, let's take this little e-commerce side business and hobby using her distribution skills and my sales and marketing skills. And I'll never forget, we were, as you mentioned, my family, and I'm originally from Ohio. We were visiting my parents in Ohio, and we went out to dinner in downtown Columbus. And uh, never forget, we're sitting at this table, and we finally had the forget it, let's do it moment. And I had a bottle of hot sauce in my hand, and I was like, what we need to do is, you know, it has the name of the corporation on there, the city and state. Pulled out the phone and said, here's their number for their wholesale sales team. I'm going to call them Monday morning and see what it takes. And, obviously we didn't land Tabasco as a client, but it at least was the first step of how do we do this? So, the Tim and Anna story started like that, as, perfect storm of her not finding a job she wanted, me being tired of a job that I did love, and made it happen.
So, okay, Tabasco didn't work, but when's the first time it did?
The first time that did, goodness. So we could probably go back circa spring to 2013, I believe it was. And we knew that we wanted to sell consumer goods. So something that a consumer turns a lot in their home. So health and wellness, vitamins, beauty products, things like that. And we were sitting at home like, okay, what can we sell? We could very easily, like most e-commerce sellers, start out with what's called retail arbitrage. You go to Kohl's or Walmart with the eBay app and look at things that are on closeout. You scan it, see if there's margin there. You buy 3 of them, you take it home and you list it. So we're like, that's just too much work. It's not going to work. And then we Googled, beauty and health and wellness trade shows, and there was one the following weekend in Las Vegas. And actually, it was January. It was the Western Buying Conference. It was always in January. And we're like, let's go to Vegas. So packed up the car, drove to Vegas, got the cheapest room that they had at the same hotel that there, and we walked down up and down every aisle, and we had our phones moving our thumbs as fast as possible, seeing if the brands were relevant on the e-commerce platforms, and went up and talked to them, pitched them, and walked away with about a half dozen accounts.
Wow.
So, and then, we moved from the retail arbitrage, which that's where everybody sells products. And, our business model now has evolved and leaped forward to the products we sell. We're the exclusive distributor for those brands on Amazon.com.
You know, so you didn't have to have the conversation with your wife, like I'm leaving this secure job, because she kind of was going on the journey with you, right?
So she's a very motivated individual. And she was able to weather the risk. We set our lives up. Um, in your book, you talk about different obstacles to overcome and fears to overcome before you get it. And, even before I met you or knew we were going to be neighbors, I don't want to sound too much like an advertisement for Dave Ramsey, but Dave Ramsey 101 is make sure you have your savings in check, make sure you have all your bad debt paid off, make sure you're not living beyond your means. So, even before I put in the resignation, it was okay, let's get our financial house in order. So, if this does work out, we don't need to take a lot of money out of the company, and if it doesn't work out, we're not filing bankruptcy tomorrow. So, we took strategic risks and we did a lot of strategic planning, not only back then, but even through today, to make sure that this is a successful uh, partnership and business.
I think it's important what you said, because I in the back of my book I have like a budget, and I shared a story for me 11, 12 years ago, when I kind of someone told me, he said, John, you should just write down for 30 days every penny you and your family spend.
Yeah.
Because I was making a lot of money. I didn't know if I was keeping a lot of money, even though I bought a lot of properties. I was like one of my hobby was purchasing property. So thankfully that was a good hobby to be in. However, the cash on cash, or having cash, wasn't my strong suit. And I was just trying to figure out why I make so much money. Where's it going? So I did this activity, and for me, I was like, "Oh my God, how much money does it cost to live my life?" And I was like, it hit home. But my what I realized was, like, some people like, I want to save. I was like, no, I want to live. I want to continue to live this life I live. I got to make more money. So some people start like, I'm cutting out Starbucks. I'm cutting out my tequila, whatever that is. I was the opposite. I was like, I don't want to give up this stuff. I actually want to live this life. So I need to work harder. I got to be smarter about it. So I don't know for you. I don't know, was it anything different, or you just were more of the saver?
It was both.
Yeah.
It was both. Look, we're devout capitalists in our house, so we want to make as much money as possible for as long as possible. But we also, when we had that health check on our finances, it was the same thing. It was like, if you read, David Bach's Automatic Millionaire, he talks about the latte effect, where, if you're spending $5, $10 a day at a Starbucks or something, you're going to cost yourself six figures over a lifetime of wasted money. So, if you increase your income through different avenues of income, whether it's your job or passive income or your side hustle, but then you also really know what your spending is. You don't have to get it in check and cut it out, but just know how much are you spending out for the tequila or the coffee or the restaurants or the shopping, or, the car insurance, or oh, shoot, I got four cars now. What do I need four cars for? And there's two drivers here. Just things like that. Really, it's really understanding it. I mean, the average American, they're terrible at finances, and you could walk up and down the street and say, "What's your monthly expenses? What's your monthly nut?" And someone's just going to give you a ballpark. That's a number you need to know on day to day life.
You know, uh, I know we talked a little bit about your business, and the Tabasco, what actually hit for you. I did see when I was reading the Inc. 5000 publication, there was a brand that you partner with. I think it was called Mixed Chicks,
Mixed chicks, absolutely.
and I've seen it on TV. So I was just curious. So how'd that happen? Because that became a really big brand, right?
That
National.
is a huge brand internationally, so not just
Oh,
here in the
international.
U.S.
Wow.
but they're all over Europe, Middle East, the Eurasia rim. So that's a Los Angeles-based brand as well. And uh, we didn't know this at the time, but we were practically neighbors to where the brand was and where our headquarters was in Los Angeles, and met them at a trade show and hit it off instantly. That company was founded by three individuals, husband and wife team, and their third partner. Her name's Kim, and wonderful brand, beautiful story. It's a multicultural hair care brand, and they really believe in what they do and giving back to the community. And like I said, we just hit it off. Like our stories aligned, and um, they were New Yorkers that made it to LA, had separate careers. I mean, they could be the next people that you have here on Leaving Six Figures. And then Kim and Wendy, two of the founders, said, you know what, hey, we it's really hard to find retail products for women with curly hair or African American women. You can't just use the mass market retail stuff that you see on the shelf at Target. So they created this brand, and it's turned into a namesake. And we partnered with them in 2017. We manage all of their Amazon business now, and really love and respect them. We have a lot of fun together. We do a lot of philanthropic work together on some of their the items that they work with around Los Angeles and around the U.S. So, yeah, that's been a really good partner of Revell Pro and of ours.
Hey, I'm strategic in my questioning because maybe they might be one of my next interviews. But
Absolutely.
plus, I have mixed children that have that hair that they need that product. So, well, I have a few questions, a few more that I wanted to ask you, and these might be off the topic, but I ask this in my businesses to people because it's intriguing of what happened in their lives. So, what are you most proud of that you accomplished so far in business?
In business,
And it could be to Revel Pro, it could be prior or in anything you actually accomplished thus far.
so it's definitely Revell Pro, and being that we've been around almost 10 years now, it's sticking it out in those early days. There's a lot of people that try a new venture, even something they have tons of experience in, and they can't get over that initial first year. Most small businesses fail in that first year. And I think the strategic planning and having strategic goals and milestones as well, if you can hit those and almost map it out like a pilot does an airplane trip, um, you can stomach those speed bumps. You can weather them, and you're going to get by them. So that's the first big one that I'm most proud of, is that we weathered the storm, we survived, and we're here. Not quite a decade, but we'll be here a decade after we initialize this thing. And obviously the Inc. 5000. Everybody remembers their first client or their first trade show, hiring our first employee, moving into a big building. But the Inc. 5000, we had, it's 3-year revenue growth of almost 3,000%. And I look back at those numbers to, in the documentation we had to turn in to earn that recognition. And it's like, wow, is fantastic. It was kind of a teary moment for my wife and I. Like, do you remember when we drove to that dang trade show in Las Vegas, and did we have enough gas to get home? And now we just scored number 175 nationwide.
I think the coolest thing is I think that same publication, you say something like, now we're going to get, like, I don't know if you said number one, but we're going to be better next year or whatever. Like you said, some kind of comment
We're
about the future.
we're so top 3.5% was number 175, and Q4 has been fantastic for us. And I'm looking the 3-year comparison, and it's going to be close again. I think Revell Pro is not going to be a stranger for that list again next year.
I love it. So how about a same question, but personally, what are you most proud of personally?
Wow, most proud of personally. You know what? It is just being a good husband, a good father, new father. I've got a 2-year-old, and we have a 3-week-old now. A good son to my parents, a good friend, and a good neighbor. So just generally being a good person. is what I'm proud of. And don't not letting the success get to our heads. And I'm speaking for Anna as well. And just being humble and carry a big stick, but a silent one.
One of my passions has been over the last 7, 8 years is leadership. And you being a leader of this company, what do you do to refine or kind of keep your leadership lid or your skills honed in? Like, what do you are you an avid reader? Do you go to events, conferences? Like, what do you do to keep yourself tight as a leader?
All of the above. I'm a big reader. I'm always reading not only the good things, but the bad things as well. There's a lot of these subreddit posts right now about toxic work cultures and the whole quiet quitting phenomena that's going on. And I think as a leader in the business world, we have to know what our peers do wrong as much as we know what they do right. So I'm always reading, educating myself. And John, you've heard me say this before. If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. So it's just rubbing elbows and networking and just learning other people's story and what makes them different, what can I learn from them, things like that.
So we have let's say we have someone that's watching this now. They're like us. They have the side hustle. They're in their job. They're like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, what advice would you give them? They're on this journey, and they're wanting to leave their career. They don't know what to do. They're not sure how to go about it. What advice would you give to that person sitting there?
Be afraid to take a strategic risk. Don't do anything to put your family or yourself in jeopardy financially, but plan it out. There's a very few folks that say, okay, December 24th, tomorrow, I'm quitting and I'm doing this. It's, plan it out, make some strategies, put a strategy together and do your best to hit your marks. And look, if you fail, it's not the end of the world. Figure out what you did wrong, redo it. And look, there's a way to make money no matter what your skills and goals are or what your career path has been, where consulting is big right now. As long as you don't have a contract against it at your job, that is the easiest way to make a little extra money and see if that turns into a business. There's websites like upwork.com where you can just upload your resume, tell your story, what you do, put a rate on there, and they'll do the fishing for you. So baby steps, take something like that and don't invest too much capital if you don't have to immediately. Get a website, get an email, buy your own name as a domain, timfrailly.com. I own that. And start with baby steps, because I can tell you, going back to 2013, we wouldn't even have registered on Inc. 5000 to have them select us. We were well below the minimum threshold for revenue, but good things happen over time when you stay positive and you have a plan.
You know, um, I'll leave everyone with this. You mentioned the last part was, I think, the part that was like my aha for people that are watching this was baby steps. Because at the end of the day, it's a journey, not a sprint. And there's no reason to rush. Like if your finances are not in place, get them in place, right? If you don't really have a true plan, get a plan. Like no one's rushing you. Like a lot of people think, oh, I got to leave my job. I mean, well, what's the plan? Like, is your budget in order? So really, I think, listening to you and knowing my story and all these other stories that we'll be sharing throughout this journey, at the end of the day, baby steps is what I took away from you, is that, like, it'll happen if you have the passion and tenacity. And like you said, there were some hard times, right? And you and your wife sat back and thought about those hard times. And then, fast forward when you got that ink, when you got that ranking, and you sat there and the first thing you two were thinking about was that journey, not really as much as, oh my God, we were 175 or whatever. No, the journey and us sitting at those trade shows and those things. So I hope that people take away that, that this is, if you want it enough, it'll happen, but don't, take baby steps. And I thank you for that advice, because I think it's something that's important, that, you don't have to happen overnight, but it'll happen if you want it enough.
Absolutely.
Tim, thank you. Appreciate you for being here. And I guess I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Appreciate you.